Pat Buchanan is with us now, of course, former advisor to several presidents, columnist, extraordinaire, speechwriter, author. Adore him, miss him. I don't see him enough, but he joins us now. I wrote a great piece on 41 and the life of 41 and the political ideology, Reaganism giving way to Bushism, what all that meant. But before we get into that, I want to talk to him about where we are at this moment with this special counsel report kind of beginning to bear down and the president's response to this. Pat, how are you? Merry Christmas.
Doing fine, Laura. How are you?
I'm well. I've been thinking about you a lot this week with the Bush funeral and all the media having their convenient case of amnesia. So I want to get into that, but let's talk about where this administration is right now. The White House Chief of Staff is going to be on his way out, it looks like, in the next few days. Got Rex Tillerson giving speeches. And we'll play this for you, Pat, hitting the president. Again, the establishment roaring back. Let's listen.
I had never met Donald Trump until the day he asked me to be Secretary of State. It was challenging for me, coming from the disciplined, highly process-oriented ExxonMobil Corporation, to go to work for a man who is pretty undisciplined, doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather just kind of says, look, this is what I believe.
Pat, how usual is it for a former chief of staff within a year or so of leaving the office Secretary of State, to trash the president?
It's extraordinary, and it seems to me is deeply unbecoming of the man. I mean, he was given an extraordinary honor by the President of the United States to be the chief voice outside the White House of American foreign policy and the chief actor. And then after being given this honor and it not having worked out, to disparage that chief of staff and to attack him and to play to the press and the media who are his adversaries, it seems to me is sort of an act of semi-betrayal that is really does not speak well of Mr. Tillerson. I thought better of him. I mean, if things go badly, I think the thing you do is that, and they often do, it's a very hothouse atmosphere. I think the thing to do is that you go quietly.
Yeah, and again, he was not well suited for this job. I mean, I have very highly placed sources about how he was just tuned out to Raymond's breaking in here.
Breaking news here. The president is confirming that he will nominate William Barr to be Attorney General, and Heather Nauert will be his United Nations ambassador appointee.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, so we got Barr in there. We'll move to that topic. I've known Bill Barr for 20 years. He is wicked smart. I will tell you that. He's one of the best legal minds, best legal thinkers. He'll easily get confirmed as former Attorney General. Interesting that he was Bush's Attorney General for just a short period of time, remember, in that interim period. Your reaction to that, Pat?
Well, I agree with you. Clearly, if he's been Attorney General of the United States, he's hugely qualified. I don't know of anything derogatory or negative about him in his career since. But to bring him back then, it's sort of like bringing back Rumsfeld as Secretary of Defense, after the long hiatus and things. So I think it's a good call by the president, and I think he'd be very easily and readily confirmed.
No, that is great news. I could not be happier. It is fantastic news. He's judicious. He has a sober approach to the law. Yet he's unfailingly conservative, but he's not going to tell you something because you want to hear it. He's going to tell you the way it is and the way the precedent lands and the way the courts rule on the circuit court to the district court level. He's well respected at the Supreme Court of the United States. I really don't think I could have thought off the top of my head. I thought Christie would be good in that role. But I think he's going to be fantastic. I didn't think he would do it, but he was Attorney General.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's Attorney General for such a short period of time that I think he thinks he can do it right now, and he's coming in at a hot time. Right, Pat, you're walking right into the cauldron. The White House counsel, new White House counsel, my friend Pat Cipollone, and Bill Barr, both good friends, by the way, as well. Trump is speaking live, Pat. Hold on, we got to go to it.
Attorney General under the Bush administration. a terrific man, a terrific person, a brilliant man. I did not know him until recently when I went through the process of looking at people. And he was my first choice from day one, respected by Republicans and respected by Democrats. He will be nominated for the United States Attorney General, and hopefully that process will go very quickly. And I think it will go very quickly, and I've seen very good things about him even over the last day or so when people thought that it might be Bill Barr. So Bill Barr will be nominated for the United States Attorney General position. I think he will serve with great distinction. I also want to inform you that Heather Nauert, somebody that we know very well, who's done a great job at as working with Mike Pompeo and others over at the State Department. Heather Nauert will be nominated. She's going to work with Nikki Haley to replace Nikki at the United Nations. She'll be ambassador to the United Nations. She's very talented, very smart, very quick, and I think she's going to be respected by all. So Heather Nauert will be nominated for the ambassador to the United Nations. Those are two very big ones. I have another one for tomorrow that I'm going to be announcing at the Army-Navy game. I can give you a little hint. It will have to do with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and succession. And I look forward to telling you, and I'll see you later. I'll see you again.
All right, we'll take a pause on that. Pat, Heather Nauert and I have to be careful because I know these people personally. She's an incredible person. She's done a great job at the State Department, both under Tillerson and Pompeo has great respect for her. She doesn't have a long, career in history, however, in foreign policy, but neither did Nikki Haley. What was Nikki Haley's experience in foreign policy? They didn't have any real experience. She was, she's an interesting person and an elected official in South Carolina, but so we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah, well, she was a two-term governor, but you're right, she had no experience in foreign policy, and she became pretty much a very outspoken ambassador to the UN. But I think Heather Nauert has had a good deal of experience. I mean, you're over there and you're the spokesman at the State Department for 2 years.
That's more experience than Nikki Haley.
You're steeped in all the issues that the State Department is dealing with.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. So she's been all over the world 2 or 3 times in the last 2 years, and again, she's acquitted herself really, really well, and she's really smart. I mean, I've known her probably for 15 years, Heather, and I'm happy about that pick. She's very loyal to the president and his agenda as well. Pat, I gotta hit you on this China deal because the president is clearly shaken by what's happened to the Dow in the last week or so, both the Fed dangling the prospect of more rate hikes, which are completely unnecessary, way too trigger happy on the interest rate hikes. But Wall Street's like, you can't do these tariffs, you can't take on China, you can't do this. This is going to throw the whole thing into chaos. And it looks like the president is very concerned about that, and I'm concerned that he might relent on these tariffs.
Well, let me say my view on this is that the United States it's really got to step back and take a long look. I mean, is it likely that China, the great power that it is, where it is going and what it is doing, is likely to join, if you will, the community of nations into a free trade global system? Or is it seeking hegemony in Eastern Asia to drive the United States out of the Western Pacific, to make itself the dominant power in the world militarily and economically, and really to displace the United States as first power on earth? And are its intentions malign or benevolent, or if not benevolent, are they at least neutral? And I think you've got to make that decision. And if you see them as a potentially future hostile power, you can't keep giving them a $400 billion trade surplus every year, which they're using to build themselves up and expand their power and influence all through South Asia and East Asia and Africa. So I think that's a decision that's got to be made. I mean, it's not a normal trade relationship as you have, say, even if you have an argument, say, with Germany or Canada or Mexico. You're dealing with a potential adversary nation. But that's something, did we make a mistake in the last 20 years in building up this tiger to where it is really a great power, the second largest economy on earth, and a great military power and a growing power.
Well, and they have stolen intellectual property. They continue to force technology transfers. Yet the Chinese leadership saying, "Oh, well, we're gonna immediately stop this fentanyl." So they won't poison us any longer, our people. We're supposed to skip daisies because of that.
Does that speak to the character of the regime we're dealing with? That they're thieving your property, they're shaking down your industries, they're manipulating their currencies, they're continuing these vast trade surpluses, they're building bases across the Indian Ocean and even in the east coast of Africa. What are their long-term intentions? I mean, are we headed for another Cold War? And if we are, should you be treating them the way we treated the Soviet Union during the Cold War? They're not an ideological adversary in the sense that they want to impose, Asian communism on the world. I don't even think they believe in it themselves. But they appear to be an imperialist expansionist power.
Pat, before we let you go, very briefly, the Bush legacy, Bushism, Reaganism, and the effort to recast the Bush years by the media as some wonderful period of relations between the press and the presidency.
I don't think you could have sold that to Barbara or George H.W. Bush at all. But look, George Bush, I think, he's a good president. He was a good foreign policy president. He presided over the end of the Cold War. But mainly, I think he was a very decent, honorable public servant who served his country from the time he was 18 years old until the day he left office as president. He ought to be well thought of. But the battle between us and back in '92, and I think we have to look at him as the last of the Cold War presidents who really was not suited, I think, politically or ideologically for the new era we were entering in after the wall came down and the Soviet Union collapsed and America turned inward and turned to a new era. But he was a good man.
And Pat, we love having you on. If we don't talk to you, and I hope we do, Raymond and I want to take you out for lunch, or something. We'll bring lunch to you. We just want to.
Can we cater the McLaughlin group one afternoon?
Bring some tomato soup.
All right, it's a deal.
All right, Pat Buchanan, love to Shelley and the rest of your family.